Now he's Robin Lundberg, I'm Ryan Aselta, and we begin today with the future of Tom Brady in New England. Now, according to a report from ESPN's Adam Schefter this morning, Brady has still not committed to playing football in 2018, Robin.
To me, this screams a genuine feud behind the scenes between Brady and Belichick. To find out what the real story is, we bring in the MMQB's Albert Breer. Albert, I don't think anyone actually believes Brady isn't going to play this year, so what's really going on with him and the Patriots?
Well, I'll say, just like you guys, I do think that he's going to play in 2018, but his handling of this offseason has been a little bit different, and it goes to what happened last weekend. Look, I don't think in the past that he would have scheduled a trip to Qatar to overlap with the beginning of the team's offseason program. So that, I think, is significant. We reported on that last week, and that obviously came to pass. And if you talk to people who've been around him over the course of the last couple of months, there's been a genuine unplugging from the game. And that's a little bit different than what we've seen in the past with Brady, where there's been this intensity in how he handles his business, how he handles preparing for a football season. And so I think that's where some of the fear is that A, the Patriots haven't gotten definitive word from Brady that he's coming back in 2018, and B, that he's legitimately unplugging here to the point where his body coach, Alex Guerrero, didn't make the trip over to Qatar with him. This was a legitimate vacation right in front of the team's offseason program. Again, without talking to Brady directly or getting Brady directly on the record, it's hard to say what he's thinking. But what we do know is that he has handled this offseason a little differently than he's handled off seasons in the past. And all of that, of course, is exacerbated by the fact that he hasn't given the Patriots definitive word that he'll be back in 2018.
Bert, certainly a different tone from Brady. This is a guy who used to talk about playing till he was 45. He's going to turn 41 this summer. How does this whole thing play out for Brady, the Patriots, and in the end of his career here?
It's difficult, Ryan. I mean, we've been talking about this for, 3-4 months now? Like, how are they going to solve the issues inside that building? On one side, you've got a coach in Bill Belichick who has had his entire program enabled by by a quarterback who's been willing to take hard coaching, who's been willing to do things differently than things are done with 31 other teams. And so in so many ways, the way that Bill has set up his program in 2018 in New England, the way it is, the way it used to be in the NFL, so much of that is predicated on the best player in the building being with that program. And if that player is no longer with that program, well, then of course you've got a larger problem. And so it's hard for me to envision Bill really changing the program that's made the Patriots so successful, that's gotten them to 8 Super Bowls, that's got them 5 Super Bowl championships. It's hard for me to see Bill Belichick really changing the foundation of what the program is much to accommodate one player, or in this case, maybe 2 players. And then on the other side of it, I think you've got a player who's sort of worn out by everything. Time can solve all of this. Again, I do think Brady and Belichick will be back in 2018, but I also believe that things are pretty tenuous in that building right now.
Albert, appreciate the time this morning.
You got it, Robin.
And we're getting some comments in from Facebook. Matt writes, he can come to San Francisco and be Garoppolo's backup. This all seems to go back to the Garoppolo story.
I know, you like that link between Garoppolo and I know there's a conspiracy theory thinking that Bill Belichick may have tried to trade Tom Brady at some point.
I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory or reading between the lines and reading some reports.
It's certainly a story that's going to continue to develop until Brady actually shows up in Foxborough. We'll see when that is. All right, Robin, to the NBA playoffs now. All of a sudden, New Orleans Pelicans look like a force to be reckoned with in the West. The Pelicans grab a 2-0 series lead on the Trailblazers. Now, of course, the Warriors also up 2-0 in their series, which means we could be looking at a New Orleans-Golden State second-round matchup. What do you think? Could New Orleans be a legitimate threat to the Warriors in round 2?
I don't want to go too far, but it's at least intriguing. I mean, the way New Orleans is playing, they've got 4 guys playing at a top level with Anthony Davis, Miocic, Drew Holiday, and Rajon Rondo in the backcourt. And they've shut down Portland's guards, Dame Lillard and C.J. McCollum, who aren't as good as Steph and Clay, but that's about as good a backcourt defensively as you could have against the Warriors, especially if Steph is hobbled. Plus, you have a monster in Anthony Davis, and since Cousins went down, they've been playing faster. He's playing his natural position at center. I never in a million years would have told you I thought the Pelicans would be even a threat at all to the Warriors in the past. I'm at least having fun thinking about the matchup now.
Yeah, it's intriguing when you look at the matchup. The Warriors won 3 of 4, but all of those matchups, none of them featured the rosters and the lineups that we would see in the playoffs between injuries. Cousins no longer with the Pelicans because of his injury. One thing that was common theme in those games, though, New Orleans jumped out early on the Warriors in all 4 of those games. The Warriors had to come back from 13, 14, and 21 to beat New Orleans. They're not going to get away with that, I don't think, in a second-round playoff matchup. The ultimate X factor, I think, is Anthony Davis. How do you match up with Anthony Davis? I don't know if the Warriors can figure that out in time for a second-round matchup.
Well, it helps to have Kevin Durant and Draymond Green inside, but Drew Holiday has added a second star-level player to the Pelicans, at least the way he's playing on both ends. Meanwhile, the Raptors look like a real-life #1 seed, dispatching the Wizards to take a 2-0 lead in that series. Meanwhile, Boston also took a 2-0 lead over the Bucks behind 53 points from the backcourt of Jaylen Brown and Terry Rozier, prompting Bucks guard Eric Bledsoe to say this when asked about Rozier.
Rozier's gotten off to a strong start to the series, no turnovers in 78 minutes. How personally do you take that matchup?
Who?
Terry Rozier.
I don't even know who that is.
So did we underrate both Toronto and Boston?
I think Eric Bledsoe's underrating Boston and Terry Rozier.
Rozier's better than Bledsoe, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, come on. That's some sour grapes right there. I think we've underrated both teams, Robin. Toronto, a couple of reasons why. First of all, they play in Canada. They just don't get the attention that premier teams here in the States get. So that's one thing. But their playoff history, they've had some early exits when they had good ball clubs, and they've shown they can't get past Cleveland yet. Until they do that, I don't think they're going to be rated higher than we've got right now. When it comes to Boston, it's a weird season for them. This was the team going into the year that was going to knock off the Cavs. Then Gordon Hayward gets hurt, and they kind of flew under the radar all season despite winning 55 games. I think Boston is still a legitimate threat. We just haven't heard much about him in the last couple months.
See, I don't think Boston's actually a legitimate threat, but I thought they'd win this series. The Bucks stink, and Boston is too well coached, and they've got young guys on the come-up, in Brown, in Rozier, in Tatum. That's enough to get them by Milwaukee. On the other side, with Toronto, this is a team that we're kind of like, prove it. And there's the doubts because they haven't done that in the past. Well, they're proving they are a much better team than the Washington Wizards right now in the first-round series. Shohei Ohtani had his doubters. He's proved it so far this year, but he had his first rough outing, leaving an Angels loss to the Red Sox after giving up 3 runs in 2 innings and with a blister on the middle finger of his throwing hand. Will facing some good teams take some of the shine off Ohtani?
A little bit, yeah. His first 2 starts were against Oakland. He's a doormat in the AL West. So that was a nice way for him to kick off his career here in the major leagues. But I think what Ohtani has to learn here is he's got to be a better pitcher when he doesn't have his best stuff. He's got to grind out 5-6 innings when he's got the start of a little bit of a blister, and he's not throwing as well as he did his first 2 games. That's what really separates pitchers, Robin, in the major leagues from being good and great. Grind it out when you don't have your best, but you can still get a quality start for your team.
2 things. 1, blisters sound less painful than they actually are. They can really disrupt you. 2, with Ohtani, it's been the hitting that's impressed me more than the pitching. You know, we've seen guys come over and pitch or come over and hit. We haven't seen them do both. So I never expected some Cy Young caliber season. If he can be effective as a starter plus continue to hit, that's where we're really going to be blown away. And so far, he's still been producing at the plate, even if he had a little blip on the radar at the mound.
A blip or a little bit of a blister. He said he would have played through it if it was later in the season, but because it's April, they took him out. Precaution, I guess. Well, it's no secret, Robin, for a chunk of the country, the weather during the first 2 weeks of the baseball season has been absolutely brutal. Mother Nature has started to stir up the idea of shortening the baseball season. Cubs first baseman Anthony Rizzo is in favor of this new idea, saying, I think we play too much baseball. When you think of Cubs and Cardinals, you think of a beautiful Saturday at Wrigley Field. You don't think about playing in 20 degrees. As a fan, you're going to a baseball game in April and it's raining, snowing, freezing rain. Is it really that much fun? That's my question. Well, think about it, Robin. Does Rizzo have a bit of a point?
Absolutely. He has a point in 3 ways. 1, I think most sports teams and leagues can shorten their seasons. You know, I think the baseball season doesn't need to be 160-something games. 2, the play is affected. You know, I don't know if Stanton would be having these struggles for the Yankees if the weather was like it was when he was in Miami. And 3, from the fan perspective, I don't want to be at a baseball game in the cold. The whole reason people get excited about the opening of the baseball season, other than it's like that reliable buddy, if you're a big baseball fan where you have a game on every day, is that it means that the weather is starting to turn. No one wants to be in attendance at a cold baseball game.
All right, so I went to a game last week at Citi Field for the Mets. Friday night, it was 70 degrees. It was random, though, because 2 days later, the same series, Mets-Brewers, the real field conditions were 28 degrees at Citi Field. That's not baseball weather. Here's the deal. I don't think you have to shorten the season. I think the schedule makers for Major League Baseball just have to smarten up. There's enough teams in the southern hemisphere of this country to host 2-week homestands to start the season. Miami, Tampa, Arizona, Houston, Texas, all the California teams, they should have extended home games. There should not be a Twins home game against Seattle, who has a retractable roof, on April 5th in Minneapolis. That's just idiotic. Come on.
Well, I mean, that's a point, but I still think that they could shorten it, get more attention in the smarter portion of the calendar. The NFL draft is taking up the calendar right now, just over a week away, and the consensus is that Penn State running back Saquon Barkley is this year's can't-miss prospect. Sports Illustrated has spent some time with Barkley over the past few months and just released a documentary about his transition to the pros. You can find the full thing on our subscription service, SITV, but check this out right now.
Barkley to his left through the hole, 35, 40. There goes Barkley, 50.
I watch film on NFL backs. I don't really look at them and be like, wow, I can be like him, because I don't want to be like him. I want to be better than him.
If you're building a Frankenstein running back, he looks exactly how you'd want him to be.
I think you can do what Kamara can do at 230.
He passed the eye test when he was in 7th and 8th grade? No. He had a vision, and that vision has become a reality.
I've been doing this 23 years. I've never seen anybody like him.
All right, we welcome in SI senior writer and author of the new book, Astroball, The New Way to Win It All. Ben Reiter joins us. And Ben, your new book drops later this summer, but we at SI.com are very excited to unveil the cover, as we see right here. We say it again, Astroball, The New Way to Win It All. We all know about your correct, infamous prediction of the Astros winning the 2017 World Series. What was this like for you? Usually writing for the magazine, your first book. What was this experience like?
Well, I really began writing it, Ryan, at least in my mind, the moment that Jose Altuve threw to first base to end Game 7 of the World Series. Kind of figured that this was a possibility if the Astros actually pulled off this prediction, and kind of grateful that they did, although it was a pretty difficult few months after that getting this thing out, but I'm excited to release it to the world on July 10th.
As we can see from the title, this is about the Astros' approach to winning baseball. What is it about Houston's approach that makes them so unique?
Well, kind of the thing that we saw back in 2014, which really developed over the years after that, was this technique they invented that went beyond Moneyball, really. Moneyball was about finding inefficiencies in the performance data that nobody else had seen before. Like on-base percentage was so important, things like that. What the Astros did, even going back to their days in St. Louis, and especially once they got to Houston behind general manager Jeff Luhnow and their head data man, Sig Mejdal, they figured out a way to bring in an overlooked source of information, which was the scouts, really. Everybody remembers in Moneyball, the scouts were kind of considered outdated, not valuable anymore. The Astros said, these guys have value. We just need to figure out a way to synthesize their observations with the data to lead to the best decisions. That's really their innovation, and it's that combination of humans and computers that led to this unlikely championship last October.
Seems like authors, when they write books, there's the plan, and then they start going down a lot of different roads as they learn things. What did you learn about the Astros that you may not have known or may have been surprised about when writing this book?
Well, I was actually surprised by how much the human factor played into their success. They say they're a data-driven organization, and that's true. And now every team in baseball is data-driven. But really, kind of the human factor and luck led to this title. They would not have won it without it. For example, trading for Justin Verlander at the non-waivers trade deadline last year, that wasn't something their computers necessarily suggested was a good idea, trading for an aging pitcher making $20 million a year. But they did it. They wouldn't have won the World Series without him. Sticking with George Springer in the leadoff spot when he had 8 of the most horrible playoff games anyone could have imagined heading into Game 2 of the World Series. That was really kind of a gut call on the behalf of the manager, A.J. Hinch, who's empowered to use his gut. He's not beholden to computers either. Springer, of course, immediately put together one of the greatest World Series of all time. There really is a lot of room, even in this most data-driven of organizations, for gut instinct and human experience. And I think that that's a lesson that, not just teams across sports, but in all industries can take forward as they try to figure out how to use data and artificial intelligence and things like that.
As we know, professional sports are very much copycat leagues, whether you're talking football, baseball, basketball. When it comes to the Astros, have they almost written a blueprint on the way to win in the modern baseball era?
I think yes and no. Yes, as far as not overlooking the power of data, like using it properly, using it to value players properly, using it for strategy. But no, as far as the ability of teams to kind of copy what they did. I think that everybody knows this now. It's no secret anymore. I mean, you look across the baseball landscape, like 8 teams right now are trying to do exactly what the Astros did, as far as, not waste resources in the present that might delay the creation of a future winner. There's only one #1 draft pick every year. There's only one ring to win. If 8 teams are doing the exact same thing, that means that in the long haul, at least half of them will come away with absolutely nothing, and they'll have a decade of misery as opposed to just a few years. I think the Astros kind of have continued to be ahead of the curve, and any team trying to do exactly what they did probably won't be successful.
Yeah, we are very excited about the success of this book, Astroball, The New Way to Win It All. Ben Reiter, thanks for being with us, man.
Thanks, Ryan.
UFC heavyweight champ Stipe Miocic is coaching on The Ultimate Fighter Undefeated, airing on FS1 starting tonight. He'll also defend his title against opposing coach, UFC light heavyweight champ Daniel Cormier at UFC 226 July 7th in Las Vegas, with tickets on sale next week. Now, are you guys on good terms coaching against each other and then having to fight, or does it just increase the animosity between you and Cormier?
No, honestly, I have no animosity towards him. I got no ill will. Yeah, he's a nice guy. Went for the season tonight. It's all about the fighters, not us.
Now, you have called yourself the best ever. What would a win over Cormier do to solidify that?
I think you just cement it more. But right now I'm not worried about all that. I'm just worried about winning that fight July 7th, which I will.
Well, I mean, you have to get focused on the fight, right? You don't need to think at all in personal terms. It's all tactical terms when you're getting ready for a fight like that?
Yeah, with me, I never want to, go out there and be aggressive and be mad. It's a terrible thing to do. So, I have great coaches. We have a great game plan. We walk out there. And, it's, we'll go out there and do my job. It's business. It's what I do. It's my job. Speaking of being mad, Conor McGregor and the incident that recently took place, right. What did you make of that when you saw it? I understand why he did it. I think with the story I've heard, he was backing his friend up, but just the whole dolly in the window was that was a little overboard. It's just too much. Do you think he should be allowed to fight in UFC again? That's not my decision. I'm a fighter. I'm not one of the I have other things to worry about. Unfortunately, some people got hurt. I'm glad they're okay, but I'm not trying to worry about. I don't like that drama. I'm more of a it's even keel. I'm good. So you're not going to fight a boxer, for instance? Oh, I'd fight a boxer for sure. That's okay. That's different. I'm definitely down. Like Anthony Joshua, I would totally fight him. It's a combat sport. It's what we're in for, and I think it'd be a great fight. Do you think you could beat any boxer out there? Oh yeah, definitely. If we got the camp I need, 100%. Like Deontay Wilder, for instance? Whoever. Anybody that took you on. Okay, well, while we're talking boxers for a second, Floyd Mayweather has said he would return to fighting, but only in the octagon, MMA. What would your message be to Floyd Mayweather about the possibility of stepping foot in the UFC? It's a different world. It's a lot different than just throwing punches. I mean, he's the best ever. The guy's never lost, but it's a whole different ballgame when you walk into an octagon. What do you think would happen to him? It would be a quick night. For Floyd, obviously. Yes. Yeah. It would be a very quick night for Floyd. He might get some punches off. You never know. With small gloves, anything can happen. It's a fight, of course, but I mean, if he gets taken to the ground, it's all she wrote pretty much. Now, Ronda Rousey, another person who's moved between venues now in WWE. Have you seen her on pro wrestling at all? I've seen a little bit. I saw a few highlights of it. Good for her. And she's definitely moving on. And who knows if she'll fight again? But she's definitely doing better for herself. I'm happy for her. Is that something you would ever consider WWE? Oh, 100%. I just I gotta talk better and not mumble my words and clear my throat out.
Would you want a manager like a Paul Heyman as Brock Lesnar has?
Yeah, I would. Whatever, man. It'd be fun. It'd just be I think it'd be a great experience. I think it would be a lot of fun. I definitely think I'd be good at it.
That's the way Lesnar is in the WWE, and it was announced recently he had re-upped. Do you think he should have changed course and gone to the UFC to fight you? Gone back?
Yeah, I don't know. I know he got popped for stuff he was taking. But I don't know. Honestly, I don't worry about that stuff. I just worry about my next opponent. That's all I really care about.
So if Brock were to pass all that stuff and come back, you would be open to fighting him as well?
Yeah, I'd fight anyone. Whoever they want me to fight, I'll fight.
That's a constant theme. I mean, you're a nice, unassuming dude, but there is no one on planet Earth that you wouldn't square up with in combat sports.
Yeah, no. I wouldn't square up with my wife. She'd beat me up. She's a tough cookie. Whoever want me to fight, I'll fight. I don't care.
All right, and I know you're a diehard Cleveland Cavaliers fan. How are you feeling about their first-round series with the Pacers?
Oh, they're fine. It's only one game. It happens before. It happened before. They'll be fine. They'll be back. They'll come back next game stronger, and they'll put on a show.
LeBron James, do you think he'll stay in Cleveland beyond this year?
I don't know. That's not my decision. He's a big boy. He can make his own decision. But listen, he did what he said. He's going to bring a title back to Cleveland, which he did.
How do you think someone with his frame, his athleticism, and all that would translate if he were training for mixed martial arts?
Oh, I think he'd do well. I think he's a great athlete. So I think if you got the work ethic and you're a great athlete, it helps out a lot too. And I think if he just put his time and effort in, he'd be great at it.
How long, without the training, let's give him a few months training. LeBron James steps into the octagon with you. How long does he last? How many seconds?
Oh, I don't know. That's a tough question to tell you. I'm terrible at that stuff. No, I don't know. I would never fight him. Because a few months. Come on now.
All right, we'll give him a year to train.
Sure, I guess. But you never know. It's a fight. Anything can happen. So we'll see. But it'd be first round for sure. There's no question.
Well, there you go. You can see Stipe Miocic on The Ultimate Fighter on FS1, and you'll also be able to see him against Daniel Cormier, who you will defeat in the Octagon July 27th, UFC 226. If you checked why Tom Brady was trending on Twitter yesterday, it was quite different than the reason he's in the news today. After a composite sketch of the man Stormy Daniels accused of threatening her was released, the internet had some fun with the resemblance the depiction had to Brady. Between this and the infamous courtroom sketch, Ryan, does anyone have a sketchier history than Brady?
I guess now we know why Brady hasn't been at voluntary workouts. He's got a new employer that he's doing a few jobs for. Hey, Brady's always been linked to saying he's going to have a career in politics after football. Maybe he just started at a little earlier than we thought, Robin.
He's laying low is what you're saying. We got some comments coming in. Jeffrey Golding's on the real story about Tom Brady today. I still believe Brady is angry with Belichick and Kraft over booting Alex Guerrero from the Pats facility in Plain. You don't mess with the TB12 brand because that's what Brady will be promoting and expanding after his football playing days are over. And Scott Sandoval says, can't wait to watch the sinking Patriots. A lot of people probably sharing that sentiment. Yeah. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow. Thanks for watching.